started by making a list of almost proposals. Like there would be titles like how we would swim, how we would dance, how we would talk, how we would drive, and they were meant to they were sort of in a speculative past or future, and I was sort of interested in how they could end up triggering ideas for paintings. So this painting was is how we cured the plague, and I was interested in this kind of I wanted everything to seem like it had to be done in the room or the space of the painting, like a false history painting, like something that seems like it could have happened but it never had. The space in the painting became really important. I was thinking about a really public space, like a space like Grand Central or something where that was then like turned private, like that people couldn't leave, and it. So I tried to get that kind of really acoustic space. I wanted it to be like a space where people would be in transport, like so it could be like a train station or something. But sort of a blood transfusion between a shark and a man, and there's something about them that is really terrifying. Maybe that they don't have whites of their eyes, and then I was thinking about birds, because a lot of those big spaces, like if you go to Lowe's hardware store or something, there's always birds flying around indoors. This painting is how we would give birth, and I don't know what that's like. I wasn't going to make this painting initially because I thought, I just had no interest in it. Like you have to like thinking about something to want to paint it, and I didn't really want to think about it at all. Just birth in general. I didn't want to make the painting until I thought of maybe an escape route or like something that she could be looking at. I wanted to make a painting that you felt like you could know, but sort of not have all of the information there that you would commonly associate with the picture. And like the most mysterious thing about the Mona Lisa to me is probably the landscape, like that feeling of like, it's such a weird landscape that she's in, and I was sort of thinking about like how she got out there, or what was she doing out there, where was she, how was she going to get back home? And then I was thinking that I wanted it almost her to sort of meld with the landscape, and there's sort of a painted glare on the painting. So I don't know, I wanted something that almost could seem like it was in between forms or something, like something that could seem like a brain, or alive or dead, or maybe like a wig, or something that could have been found in the future but painted in the past. So it's a super smart brain, but like it's big. Well, I knew I wanted it to be really muted down, and I think with a lot of these paintings I was interested in them like I was interested in intimacy more than. So I think that the palette did change, because it was, I felt like I wanted them to be quieter, or like the image to sort of dissolve, and atmosphere became a really important part of them, like the air that surrounds the objects, or it was meant to be like how we would dance, like, and I was thinking about those dance parties. The best parties, I think, are always when there's like just 5 people. I just remember this one time of like dancing to the clock radio or something, or in a dorm room. So this was supposed to be like a dorm room, but I knew I wanted the people dancing to be atmospheric or pushed way back in the space. And I wanted these marks to sort of begin to configure language in some way. No, I was trying to remember back to like when you would sort of paint something from observation, and what those paintings tended to be like. A lot of times people would not fit the whole figure in, so they would always have to cut off the eyes. But it would be repeated so much. I was just thinking like, what if this was found way in the future, it would seem intentional. So I was interested in these kinds of ruptures. But I was sort of interested in the figure as being something that could be either ruptured by these holes, or the holes could like be somehow in front of the subject and the viewer, or cut way in back of the picture. It was weird. I mean, they were hard to place. I wanted them to be like abstract. It was a lot harder on the female model, because it was like if you put a hole somewhere, it's like, oh, it's breast cancer. Well, you don't want them to sort of align to make some sort of face. For me, at least, kind of strange that there's this information missing, but then it itself becomes a kind of graphic information. And so I wanted to have like this sort of really hot, I was thinking about the temperature, but that feeling of like when the car is sort of idling and it's really hot and maybe the fumes begin to distort things, or so I wanted the figures to be kind of I didn't want to see their faces so much, but almost kind of like melting, or I don't know. But the woman is and there's this sort of rust on the car, but I was also thinking they could be this sort of continents, or so I started thinking about like if even driving to Hawaii, but also like I guess those ideas of progress or ideas of destination that were maybe so attached to the 50s. But I wasn't interested in like actually like, you know, trying to tell people like you know how we drove or something, but almost more like what it was like to drive. Well, for me, this is a painting of my friend Tom, and he really sits that way. Like, but I don't know. I was just talking to him one day, and he was just sitting with his arm back, and it really was really weird. It looked like he was either really double jointed, or his arm wasn't quite attached to his maybe it was like coming out of his head or something. But it was this way of sitting that was kind of both really tense and uptight, but also relaxed. I like the idea that he could be sort of looking into this other space, or you don't know quite what he's looking at, or like he's in a sort of interior moment. Yeah, I was interested in abstract painting mainly because I didn't know how to think about it and I didn't know how to make it. And you know, I was interested in all the sort of historical narratives that had been attached to it, or ideas of progress, or even utopian ideas. Like they don't exactly work in the same way that they had, and yet they're still abstract paintings. So I was interested in just trying to see how I would make one. And also I liked that it was sort of resistant to narrative. Sometimes it's like you never know what could trigger a good idea for a painting. So like, you know, it just wouldn't seem interesting, and then you start thinking about it, how it could be interesting, and, you know, or how you could paint it in a way that you would find interesting, and then I feel like then it starts to open up, and then it starts going.